So in this episode, I'm going to talk about something that most MSPs have no idea on how to do efficiently, optimally, or even reasonably competently, and that's train help desk staff. So there's lots of misconception about what training is in the MSP space, and a lot of the time it's completely sort of disregarded. They think they're going to hire somebody, and that person is automatically going to be logged onto the PSA, RMM documentation platform, given a telephone line, and off they go. They should know what to do. They can muddle along and they can chat with their colleagues if they run into a situation that they don't know what to do with. And this is one of those like small MSP blunders that I think really needs to stop, because at Supportive Venture, my company, we actually onboard remote staff onto many different MSPs. And we see that the ones that just throw people into the fire and hope for the best, they don't get the best results. The ones who have a structured training plan, the ones who understand the way technicians learn and understand the way that they need to mentor them, are the ones that have the most success using our outsourced staff. So essentially, I mean, there's so much wrong that's being done in this space. There's so much that is just like, where to begin? ConnectWise University. Let's start there. Or, I don't know, Autotest probably has a similar one, but all of this university stuff, Continuum University, I've seen a bunch of different ones. And this is provided by the vendors of the software as a service companies that you're using to deliver your service. And they essentially make these sort of training resources for their products, which are mostly irrelevant in most cases to the positions that most MSP technicians are working. And so it's incredibly, and it also goes contrary to the way that most of us technical people who are good and the types of people that MSPs desperately need, the way that we learn. All right. So ConnectWise University is a horrible example of effective training in the MSP space, because you're essentially talked to like you're a child, being introduced to concepts like, I don't know, a drop-down menu for the first time. And just click the drop-down menu and click status in progress in a super annoying and robotic voice. And it's all this information that you don't really see as relevant. You don't really know what the relevance is because you don't know what you're going to be doing. And the way that us in the IT sphere who are good at figuring things out is we take the knowledge, we find the knowledge that helps us do what we need to do, and we incorporate it at an incredible speed. That's the skill that makes you succeed in this industry. And so to say that you have to watch, a gazillion modules of ConnectWise University so you know about a bunch of features in the software that you're never going to even touch, that's a horrible way to alienate people that you're training and make them feel like their new job is really boring. Instead of this, I think you should actually figure out your rules for the tools and the way that you as a company are going to use ConnectWise, right? You as a company, what are your statuses? What's the custom list of statuses? What do they mean? Why have you assembled it like that? Are you using scheduling? What do the red arrows mean on the help desk? What do you want them looking at every day? What should their timesheet look like? How should they log their time and all that sort of stuff? You need to compile a resource in writing and maybe a video that shows how your people should be using ConnectWise according to your company and how you have integrated the product and the ways of using it that are relevant to their positions, basically. It's really important because then you're giving them useful information that they can refer to while they're doing the job, not some, endless volumes of useless information that has nothing to do with their job. So your rules for the tools, set them up, write them down, make a resource out of it that's well indexed that they can use while they're doing the job. So another big mistake that I find with MSP onboardings for new technicians is shadowing. It's a very useful tool to have people shadow, but shadowing without structure is probably a great way to get a lot of the bad habits that your technicians have already transferred onto the new staff. So let's say you don't have a written down guide on how to write ticket notes in your organization, which I believe you should have. I've written one. We give it away for free to all of our new clients if they need it. The ticket note writing guide. So say you don't have that. Say you don't have any written standard of how they should write ticket notes. And you give them to Johnny, and Johnny is your, I don't know, he's been on the help desk for 2 years, and Johnny's supposed to train Bob, who just got hired. And Bob sees Johnny writing really vague and short and hurried ticket notes with, you know, little to no documentation. Bob will think that that's the standard he's supposed to reach, and those bad habits will be transferred, you know, either non-verbally or verbally by example or by instruction. It's like, oh, you just do this, you just do this. And this sort of like unstructured way that whoever's on the help desk has learned to do their job is transferred to the new person. It can work for a while, it can have some results, but if you are growing your MSP, you need to go towards consistency, go towards a system of standards and holding people accountable to those standards, so that you can have success in growing your service desk without it turning to chaos. You know, Johnny might be doing his job really well, but Bob won't have Bob won't be a complete clone of Johnny. And if you give him no structure through which he can provide similar results to Johnny, he'll just take a bunch of bad habits or good habits from Johnny and make up the rest as he goes along. Another big mistake I see MSPs making when they're training, just throwing people into it. It's like, okay, here's ConnectWise, here's IT Glue, here's the RMM, off you go. And then they jump in and say, hey, why aren't you doing it like this? Hey, you know, the little random bursts of micromanagement that come in where they gave them no management. Like, there's a good phrase, micromanagement is training. It's not micromanagement initially, it's training. And so you can micromanage parts of your business, but you need to do it through structure. Else it'll be a mess. So if you just assume everybody knows how to do their job based on, you know, shadowing Johnny or whatever, or you just throw them in and assume that the tools will show them the way or something like that, and that their prior experience will show them how to be an asset to your company without any sort of onboarding or training, you just throw them in. And then you're going to realize they're not doing what you want them to do. Then you're going to jump in and micromanage. No, you need to actually have a training plan. You need to actually have things that are covered in the training, and things that you can hold them accountable to on an ongoing basis, like keeping ticket notes, like keeping documentation up to date, like having timesheets that add up to a certain amount every week, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, throwing them in is not going to make them a part of your company unless you get really lucky. And you're not going to get lucky on your 50. You're not going to get lucky 15 times in a row if you're growing an organization that has 15 technicians. So you need to have standards. You need to have a training plan. You need to have a way that your company uses ConnectWise, the way that they serve clients, the way they talk to clients, the way they call clients up, leave a voicemail, close the ticket if you can't reach someone after 3 attempts or whatever. Write all that down. Write all that down. The next mistake that I see made is during training, unstructured communication. It's just like, it's similar to throwing them in. It's like, okay, here you go. And if you need help, talk to Johnny. I keep on saying Johnny. Talk to Johnny, chat with Johnny on the chat on Teams or Slack or whatever. Yeah, all right. So that's unstructured communication. Nobody's taking ownership of the training, but Johnny's just there. And Johnny will be around if you need him. You know, he might be doing 4 tickets at once, but, you know, Johnny's going to be around, and you can just like, you can just chat with Johnny. No, you should have a training plan that includes actual regular mentoring sessions with someone who knows how the company vision is working in regards to the help desk, what type of promises you want to fulfill to the clients, and ensure that the technician is on their way to being able to fulfill those promises, that consistency to the clients that your brand is thriving because of. You know, if somebody refers you a client, so one of your existing clients refers one of their friends to you who becomes a new client, it's because they believe there's a certain consistency in your brand, what you're doing, what kind of shop you're running. And with unstructured communication during training, unstructured training, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to ensure that the new person is going to give anywhere near the level of service that the old person that everybody loves is going to give. It's just going to be a complete crapshoot every time. As I said, you're not going to get lucky 15 times. Documentation. I mentioned ticket notes, but also technical documentation. Make a way that they can become a contributor to documentation. Make a way they can flag when something's missing and then see that it's actually been addressed. Then see that somebody actually fixed the problem documentation that's missing, so they have to escalate less. So they see that they can help make the documentation better, because a lot of MSPs, let's face it, they have horrible documentation. Someone new starts, they get used to that situation and they muddle through it, but they don't believe that they can actually change it because the senior techs aren't even writing down when they change a IP address of a firewall or something like that, or a printer. And well, it's just like a lost cause. But make them part of the documentation ecosystem of how documentation gets updated and corrected, templated, audited, all that sort of stuff, and train them on how to do their part in flagging what's missing and updating what they can. Yeah, really important. Accountability checklists, another very important thing. You need to tell people where the goalpost is for their new position, where they are aiming. What are the things they have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in order for their job to be fulfilled? Think about this list and make sure they do all of those things. And when they're not doing those things, then you point at the list rather than, nagging them based on a bunch of stuff you told them once in like a, 4-hour training shadowing session that they, forgot 5 minutes later. You actually have a list. You've given it to them. This is your job. You have to do all these things in order to fulfill our expectations of what your role is supposed to do. And if you do that, we're good. And if you don't, we'll just take a look at this list and clarify whatever needs to be clarified. And then, if somebody keeps on ignoring the things on those lists, then you have a case for probation, dismissal, whatever it is. But if you haven't given them clear expectations and they're not doing it, yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, forget about this. Like, hey, did you see the email that I sent 3 weeks ago that told you not to do that? That was sent to 5 other people that wasn't even addressed to you among the 100 other emails you got that day from random stuff that was flying around on our disorganized MSP? No. So yeah, what actually does help in training? A list of tools and the stuff that it's being used for, how often they should check it. So what do you use the RMM for? How often should they check the RMM? Are there weekly, monthly, daily checks they have to do to see this, to see that, check different disk space on servers and stuff like that? Write that on a list. How are they expected to check the ticketing system? Like which queues on the ticketing system, which statuses, what are they checking for in terms of ConnectWise, red arrows versus green arrows versus whatever? What are the rules? How does it all work? Have your list of tools and then have links to the documents where you describe how your company uses them. Next one, walkthroughs. Walkthroughs. Very important that they have walkthroughs, like how to log on to a server. If this is one of the main things they have to do, how to use your RMM to log on to a server. It can be a video, it can be screenshots on a text. I would prefer video because you just narrate, you say a bunch of stuff, the screen is shared, they can, rewind, go slow-mo, go fast, whatever, and actually see everything that's happening on the screen. So walkthroughs, very important to have those recorded. You can use Zoom to record the files, upload them to your Google Drive or whatever you want. Because people are very hands-on. If you give them a walkthrough, if they actually see something happening, someone doing it, and they can do that themselves, that's how we in the tech industry learn how to do things, by incorporating the relevant information towards our outcomes. By Googling relevant information, finding information we can incorporate to our tasks to achieve certain outcomes. Not a whole list of stuff we need to know, a whole resource of stuff that we can use when we need to know the stuff to do our job that we're doing. So also test tickets. I'm really big on test tickets. They should get a ticket and it says log into this server and find the uptime of the server. Give me a screenshot of the uptime. Or log on to this mail panel and create a test mailbox with today's date on it and post a screenshot. And, learning by doing. Microsoft Office 365 isn't a complicated panel. But if you don't have someone who can log on and figure it out, they're just told to create a shared mailbox with certain settings and they can't figure out how to find the place in Office 365 where they can do that, they're the wrong person. If they can't figure out how to log on to a Windows server and find where the uptime is, they're the wrong person. You need to allow them to figure out things for themselves, but towards a certain outcome, and give them test tickets that will give them the experience, exposure, skills, and stuff that will allow them to, when they do get a ticket that involves logging into a server, they've already been through the RMM, logging into the places where they need to log into. And that sort of stuff will not be a source of delay or confusion or a need for escalation, because they've already been through a walkthrough where they had to figure out for themselves how to do that. They've got that building block and they're ready to log into the server and then figure out why the service crashed from the event logs and all that sort of stuff. Give them the experience. You could sit there and you could read 5 books on how to ride a bicycle, but you wouldn't be able to ride a bicycle because it's something that you need to experience doing. And once you know how to ride a bicycle, you just know it and you can do it. That's what I mean by learning from experience. And if you got the wrong person, a friend of mine once said, you can't teach a dog how to ride a bicycle. So if you got the wrong person, no matter how much you try to train them step by step, click here, click that, they'll probably be a failure in a job on an IT support help desk. So yeah, customer exposure. Give them the exposure to talk to your clients, calibrate to the types of people you have in your clientele and the way that you want them to talk to them, coach them on that, record the calls, listen to the call recordings, give them tips, a guide on how to deal with clients and the sort of values in your customer service and all that sort of stuff. Really important that they have guidance on the style of customer service you want to give, the consistency of it, meaning like when to call back, when to leave a voicemail, when to send an email, all that sort of stuff. And just give them that exposure so they get to know the people who are involved. Also, how to deal with the security part of verifying that users are who they say they are. Give them a guide on that as well. Security training is where MSPs fail a lot. And luckily, it hasn't been that much of a problem in the industry, but it will be moving forward if MSPs don't get serious about training their people on how to actually be good security gatekeepers to the systems. So yeah, looking over a list of clients can be really good when you're training someone for your MSP, because like, there's a natural calibration that if you look at the clients, it's like, okay, this is a mining company. Okay, this is a stock brokerage. Okay, this is a creative PR company. This is a, this is a garbage collection company, and these are the types of clients, these are the types of systems these have, these are the number of endpoints, the software they use, and all that sort of stuff. If you have good documentation, they should start looking that over. And it's a nice sort of task where they can passively absorb information and sort of get familiar, because a lot of training programs are too much like, learn this, do this, learn this, learn. They're either too structured or they're not structured enough, but giving them some time to sort of passively absorb stuff while going through the systems is a really good way to let the training breathe. So documentation and ticket notes are super important. You need standards on documentation and ticket notes. I've covered this already. Make them feel that they have a stake in the whole documentation of the company, that's what keeps the help desk healthy and not sort of rotting from the need of escalation and constant chats and communication. That's another thing, communication between team members. Like, you need to have weekly calls with your trainees, at least maybe daily calls with someone who's mentoring them on how they're doing with it. And as soon as possible, as soon as you feel they're ready and they've gone through all the stuff and test scenarios and stuff like that, get them real exposure with people, record the calls, look at their ticket notes, and in these mentoring calls, review them, give them tips on how they can do better representing your company. Because if they're on the help desk, they're representing your company. If they do wrong, they can lose you a client. So take this very seriously. Take the time to mentor them, review their tickets, review their notes, review their outcomes, review their customer surveys that come in afterwards and how happy the people were, review the call recordings, all that sort of stuff, time to mentor them and put them on the right path. Then moving on, make sure you're reviewing on a monthly or every 2 months or 3 months, whatever it is, how they're progressing. The same thing, keep on looking at what they've been doing, listening to the calls, whatever, if you're recording them, and hold them accountable for the things that they have been accountable to from the beginning with your accountability checklist. Just see how they're progressing, because usually after 3 months, someone's settled into an MSP, but it can happen faster or slower. So realize you're dealing with human beings who have different learning styles, different ways of getting things done, different ways of communicating, and you have to be into sort of nudging them into doing it in a way that works in your organization as a whole. So there's lots of structure you can put in here, folks. And what we like to see in terms of training plans from MSPs is a written training plan that explains like what the first week is going to look like to get them on the systems. And if you don't have that, if it's just shadowing someone else, that might work. But if you have a structured training plan and you know what the accountability points are, that the people are going to be clearly communicated the expectation and then held accountable to it, it'll be a lot easier to have success hiring new staff for your MSP. Thanks a lot. This is Eric, MSP Mountain.